Well, we'd like to welcome everybody to Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. And my backgrounds keep getting stranger and stranger every time. But thankfully, we've got the man of the hour, Coach Close, is with us here for the first time this season. Gary, your background is very comforting to Iowa fans. You're in a familiar place. And I tell you, Iowa fans need some comfort tonight. Kind of an ugly performance from their Hawkeyes. It was a hard-fought game here in the T-Mobile Center. I'm coming to you from the bowels of the T-Mobile Center. We just got to chat with Fran here post-game. A lot to get to, but you see on the banner there, the Hawkeyes falling. Why do I have Iowa defeats Utah State? Man, I always mess up the banner, Gary. But I guess the heart wants one.
You didn't come ready to play, obviously.
The heart wants what it wants. And now I'm going to get ripped for that in the comment section. So that's great. Utah State defeats Iowa 77-69. Gary, a couple of takeaways for me, and then I'll let you roll here and kind of give me your 2 cents. I mean, I'm looking at the final box score, and again, we talked to Fran about a couple of these things. First of all, you're going to be hard-pressed to win any game when you're minus 16 on the glass, when your best player goes 1 of 13 from 3, and you turn the ball over 16 times. And the team as a whole shot 5 of 26 from 3, 19%. And oh, by the way, they were 8 of 16 from the free throw line. Those types of stats will get you beat by 20 on many nights. Iowa was in the game till basically the last 5 minutes, and Utah State kind of pulled away. Am I spot on my take, or is there more to it?
No, I think that's pretty much in a nutshell. Now you got to figure out why that all happened. That's the next question. First off, Utah State's a pretty good basketball team. They're they've been around the block a little bit, and they've got a pretty good tradition and things like that. So that wasn't a bad team, although I didn't think they played particularly well either. But I think the big thing was their zone offense. I don't know how much zone they have faced this year. I haven't seen them play a lot, but their zone offense just didn't look in sync. And I think that had a lot to do with the shooting percentages, the rebounding edge. They didn't get a lot of transition baskets. If you can get Iowa to a half-court game, you got a better chance of beating them. And there weren't a whole lot of transition opportunities other than when they got some steals, with their pressure. And so that affects your rebounding totals, affects your shooting percentages. Owen Freeman, I think, was 9 for 12. He probably should have had 24 shots tonight. I mean, they didn't touch the post enough. It was I thought a lot of settling from 3, and then you kind of get into a rut. Not that they took a lot of bad shots, but they took some, and they just didn't touch the post enough, didn't get to the free throw line enough, and that'll affect your rebounding totals and right on down the line. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was trying to block. So just full disclosure for people, we've got a second game that just started here in the T-Mobile Center, so I'm trying to mute myself when Gary's talking. Gary, would you mind moving your camera down just a little bit? I don't want to keep blocking your face. There we go. We asked Fran about Peyton's woes, and I don't know what you say, Gary. I mean, I asked him, do you just tell your best guy to keep shooting? And I think that was kind of Fran's answer, like he's just a better shooter than that. I asked him about the gym. I know coaches probably don't like hearing that, but the moment I walked into this place, I'm like, not a shooter's gym. I just came from Sioux Falls here a few days ago, the Pentagon. It's a shooter's gym. Now we'll see how they shoot against Utah here next month in the Pentagon. But this is a big arena. Is there truth to that? I know coaches don't want to look at that because they play in big arenas, but just your thoughts on the shooter's gym thing.
It could be. I mean, of course, it's their first game away from Carver, so it's different. It's not a true road game, but it's not like playing at home. Utah State's obviously in the same boat. I don't know what they shot from 3. I don't think it was great. I thought both teams struggled offensively, but I think when you're not shooting well from 3, then you got to try to find some other ways to score. And I think in a lot of cases, some of your best threes are when you penetrate. And I thought the middle of the zone was open and they didn't take enough advantage of that. And I think maybe a lot of that's they just haven't had a lot of work against zone defenses. And, it looked like they were just a little out of sync offensively. Just not enough penetration, not enough post touches, and the result is you don't get to the free throw line. You don't get easy shots around the rim.
It is amazing. This team lost by 8, and in spite of all those stats we ran through, even if you give them those 8 free throws, this game at least goes to overtime. Now, I know it's not that simple, but talk about the defense. It did feel like they defended at least first half, and I'm looking at first half stats, and held Utah State to 36.4 from the field. They were a little bit, actually, looking at rebounds here. So they were -5 in the first half on the glass. They still weren't great on the glass, but they did hold Utah State to a low percentage. Did you think Iowa's defense was better than we are accustomed to seeing in that, at least in the first half?
Yeah, I thought it was solid pretty much the whole game. They lost the game on the offensive end. I don't think there's any doubt. Shooting the percentage they did, the lack of free throws attempted, and then even the ones they attempted, they didn't shoot very well. So you look at their shooting percentages, right? The only shooting percentage that was high was what?
The only shooting percentage that was high for who?
Iowa.
For Iowa? Owen. Let's see.
Well, just generally speaking, their 2-point percentage was very high.
Yeah,
they probably shot over 60% from 2.
Yeah, I was going to say the box score doesn't show 2-point percentage exclusively.
Well, if you subtract the
exactly
threes from the twos, I'll bet you it's close to 60%.
Yeah, let me do.
They didn't get enough twos. They got too many threes and not enough twos. Now, obviously, if they make them, then you don't care. But the problem is they didn't.
Yeah, they would have been. Let's see.
And that's what zone defenses try to do, is get you to beat you from the outside. And if you can't make them, then it's hard to get offensive rebounds missing threes.
Yeah.
And you don't get to the free throw line.
20. So Iowa from 2, just to answer your question real quick. 23 of 38 from 2.
Yeah, that's a high percentage.
So how do you get in a game like this where Utah State goes zone? How do you get Owen Freeman more touches inside? Because it seemed like the Aggies were comfortable.
Well, I thought they dribbled way too much. There was a lot of dribbling on the perimeter. Against zone defenses, you got to spread them out, both vertically and horizontally. You got to hit the open areas in the middle along the baseline, and that's where Freeman's got to roam. He's got to roam in the middle of that paint. He's got to work the baseline, and you got to put a good passer in the middle there that can kick it out or kick it down low. And I just didn't think they penetrated enough against the zone to really break it down. And what you'll find is when you penetrate and then kick it out, those threes are a higher percentage threes than if you just pass the ball around the perimeter and shoot it.
I know you haven't watched as much Iowa basketball as maybe some people, Gary, but one of the continued questions is Fran's rotations. And I know you've downplayed in the past who's starting versus who's playing the most minutes. Now, in this case, tonight, I don't think we necessarily need to have the point guard debate about who's starting, because Brock had his best performance as a Hawkeye since he's been here.
He was good.
But and he kept him in the game in the second half. Let's just call a spade offensively. He kept him in the game with his shot making, even produced, I think, a steal or 2 in that second half. Ended up with 4 steals on the night. But, it was a little odd seeing Seydou Traore ride the bench so much in the second half. Elliot Clough of Rivals, Hawkeye Beacon, said he saw Traore getting some treatment on the sidelines with a massage gun. So maybe there was some soft tissue stuff going on there. But there was a moment late in that second half, and I'm not sure you saw it on the television broadcast, Gary, but there was a moment in that second half late where Fran brings Seydou back into the game, and I didn't catch if it was an effort thing or what it was, but within about a minute, one possession on each end of the court, Fran rips him from the game, and I'm sure this wasn't caught on the television broadcast, but I can tell you from where I was sitting, Fran went over and ripped Seydou a new one. And so I don't know what that was, and I don't know if that was also correlating to why he was riding the pine so much in the first half. It just seems with his athleticism, they need his rebounding. Like, that's just that one stat. They need him to be in the game for rebounding purposes. Now, for the game, he finished with just 4 rebounds, but just 17 minutes. So if he plays 25 to 30, you'd expect maybe to get somewhere between 8 and 10 boards from him. He averaged over 8 a game last year as a freshman at Manhattan. I know sort of apples to oranges here. But and then you got Laji Dembele, who's not giving you anything offensively. And he picks up a couple early fouls, kind of made him sideways tonight. I know it's easy to read into rotations when a team loses, Gary, but is there anything you look at with the starting lineup? Is this too soon to start tinkering?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Corey. I haven't watched him enough to really get a good feel for that. It was really the first game that I watched from start to finish. I've seen bits and pieces of him, but not an extended amount of time. So it's pretty hard for me to answer. But they do need some more inside presence in terms of rebounding and scoring. And, Owen's obviously getting a lot done, but he needs some help.
Iowa got 4 minutes out of Evan Bronze, 5 out of Cooper Koch. You had Bryce Sanford go 0 for 2 from 3. Josh Dix goes 0 for 4 from 3. Now he's coming off an injury, missed some time. But man, it just feels like, one of the storylines you and I discussed preseason was the need to figure out how to deal with off nights from 3. And it felt like through even 3/4 of this game, like to the 10-minute mark in that second half, it felt like this is anybody's ball game. It can go either way. And there were a couple moments where Iowa got up 6, and you think, okay, if you can push this to 7 or 8, maybe you can hit a couple of threes and get it to double figures. It just wasn't to be. But I did not expect a game like this in which Owen Freeman does not struggle with foul trouble for Iowa to become so live or die by the 3. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Maybe too many threes taken as opposed to touches inside for Owen. And I just think
that's why teams play zone defense, is that they get teams in a rut of not penetrating, not attacking. And Iowa traditionally is a pretty good 3-point shooting team, so it's a little risky to do. But tonight they weren't hitting, so they just stayed right in there and played to that, played the way that game was going, and they never really got it going. So it was good. It turns out to be a pretty good strategy. So that's the beauty of zone. That's the beauty of a zone defense when you especially early in the year when you haven't had a lot of time working on it. But I think they were just a little bit too dribble happy, a little too stationary, not a lot of ball movement, not a lot of post touches. You got to penetrate. That's the way you break defenses down, no matter if they're offense or defense. You got to be able to penetrate, especially if you're not hitting. Now, if you're hitting, then that's a whole different deal. Then they got to come out a little farther, and maybe things open up even more. But they weren't, so they didn't have to adjust.
How much does the average coach look at fast break points, especially if your offense is predicated on getting out and running? Is that a stat you look at on a box score?
You might, yeah, you might. At both ends, you obviously don't want to give up easy baskets, and usually transition baskets are relatively easy. So, but when you're taking a lot of threes, it's hard to get offensive rebounds and zone defense. A lot of people don't think it. Zone defenses are pretty effective at getting back and stopping transition because you're not trying to find somebody. You're just running back to an area and turning around. Right. And so at times zone defense can be pretty effective stopping transition. And I don't know if in their box score they have transition baskets, but I don't think Iowa got very many.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a stat that stands out simply because of how Iowa wants to play. They get 21-4 on fast break points. And so
Iowa had 4?
21-4.
Yeah.
So minus 17 against Utah State. I just obviously if you can't rebound, you can't get in transition. Is it kind of that simple to some extent, in addition to what you said about zone?
Well, when you shoot threes and miss, that's almost like an outlet pass.
Sure.
Very hard to get offensive rebounds. There's long rebounds coming out. They get it and they go, and it hurts your transition. You don't get to the free throw line, it hurts your transition defense. Pretty hard to run against teams that are shooting at the free throw line. And obviously, if your shooting percentage is not good, it's easier to run because obviously easier to run on a miss rather than a make. So those all, and then there's probably some breakdowns where they just didn't do a good job of transitioning back. So, that's a big stat. I mean that Iowa's a good running team. To hold them to 4 points, that might be the lowest they have all year. Wouldn't surprise me.
Folks, before we get to, we got a couple of people who have a couple questions here for Coach. Do want to thank our sponsor, Brad Van Meter, and his team down at State Farm. Be sure you get a free quote from Brad and see how he can help you to save money on all insurance policies, auto, motorcycle, renters, boat insurance, homeowners, whatever the case may be. Give him a call, see how he can help you and your family. They're all Hawkeye fans down there on Fleur Drive in Des Moines. 515-256-6480. Also online at bradvanmeter.com. That's all one word, www.bradvanmeter.com. And got Elliot Clough here of Rivals, so he's going to hop on and see if we get some reaction here from Brock Harding while we're getting Elliot set up here. Let's add Doug to the mix. Doug, welcome.
Hey, we're down here in Kansas City as well. So
cool.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the crowd tonight, Doug?
I, like most of the time, I'm not that impressed with Hawkeye basketball crowds. So.
Well, I think that's a fair estimation based on what Elliot, you tweeted this out. They can't really see you, but you tweeted this out. He tweeted this out early that it was probably a quarter,
a quarter, maybe a fifth full.
Yeah.
Right. And most were Iowa fans, as you know,
Yep.
Doug. But
we
Doug, they didn't even open the top levels of this place. They were all curtained off. It's like a women's basketball game from 15 years ago. I mean, they didn't have any seats. They didn't try to sell seats up there, and they still couldn't get it full. Part of the problem is, I think maybe matchup-wise, you could have probably done a little bit better, but neutral site games are what neutral site games are. Don't stagger the game 7 and 9:30. Maybe start a game at 6 and then have a game at 8:30. Doug, you're back in your hotel. You didn't even stay for game 2.
We left with 15 seconds to go.
All right.
Yeah.
So what do you got for Coach?
Well, it was good to see him.
Good to see you too.
Like
Doug.
I said, because you guys were talking about zone philosophy, what were some of your things about zone offense? We, a little bit of high school basketball I used to play, we did a lot of screening in the 2-3 zone, screening the outside guys, getting the furthest guy open 3. We had different plays, even screening that middle guy. You talked about penetration. What were some of your things did you run set plays or run a zone offense at both either Iowa or Wisconsin or even before?
Right. We did a little bit of both. We had some zone plays against specific zone defenses that, you look at the areas where they might be a little vulnerable and try to set some plays up to attack those spots. But basically, you've got to move the zone around, not like a man. You got to try to stretch them, horizontally from baseline to the top, and then sideline to sideline, make them cover. And when you're keeping the ball in one area, dribbling it, they don't even have to work.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to be able to touch. Suppose you go back and look at it, there's openings, whether it's along the baseline or in the middle of the zone. Usually 2-3 zones are pretty vulnerable right in the middle. So you got to put a good passer there. And you can also penetrate with the dribble and then break, get the defense to collapse. And that's when you can kick it out and get better threes and work the baseline and try to get some post touches and shots around the basket. So Iowa got very few shots around the basket. And when they did, they made them for the most part. They probably needed a little bit more. But, anytime you shoot the percentage they shot from 3, and there weren't a lot of bad ones. There were a few, but when you don't make them, it's gonna obviously make the game a little more difficult.
Can I just say this again, real quick? Interject, Doug, because of what Gary just talked about. Continuing to go back at shooting maybe a few too many threes, getting the ball inside. Doug, I asked Fran this too. I said, how do you get Logi going? And I don't know did he really have an answer to that? I mean, I don't really know that he had an answer to that other than what? What was the answer to that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll just turn it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know that he really had an answer to it either. I don't know that anybody really has an answer other than play Seydu rather than Logi. I mean, that seems to be the common trend, at least. I got the Doug approval.
Yeah, Doug. I understand, Gary, that maybe it's more important who's playing more minutes. But Logi I don't know what Logi's giving them right now. He's a 265-pound post who doesn't rebound. He's 0 for 1 from the field. Is he some great defender that I'm missing?
I don't know.
3 rebounds, 0 points, 2 assists, and a turnover. Now, I know he struggled with foul trouble in the first half, but they can't get more. If they can't get more production out of him than that, I think it is time to make. I don't know how you can defend keeping him in the starting lineup. I don't know. And Doug, I know Gary hasn't watched much basketball this year from Iowa. Doug, you've watched every game. This has been par for the course for Lodge. He's not done anything this year offensively.
Yeah. And even when they got Seydou, even in your offseason, when they got Seydou from Manhattan, we all kind of thought he would be the starter. I mean, maybe I thought that.
Yeah.
But I was like, you go get this guy that's getting 8 boards from Manhattan, and that's a problem you're having. Why are you playing somebody that last year? I mean, unless, like you said, unless Lodgy made a huge jump, and which we haven't seen. So unless Lodgy's doing something behind the scenes, it's time to play Seydou a lot more. But
you just got, I mean, I want to challenge that. Not that Lodgy gives a crap what I say, but again, it's not a matter of just pulling the guy. He needs to be more productive.
Yeah,
he's too big and he's too important. There's not enough depth at the 5, so he's going to get a lot of depth at the 5. We know he's going to play when Owen's in foul trouble. If Owen gets hurt, he's going to play a lot. Now he only played 10 tonight because Evan Braun's got 4 minutes. Owen played great, played 34 minutes, and I didn't think Traore played poorly in that first half. But man, they need Dembele to rebound the ball. They got to get better rebounding out of other guys other than Owen and Seydou.
Mm-hmm.
If I could chime in, if he's that big, he's got to be more physical.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be a better defender. He's too good of an athlete to be as bad of a defender as he's been. I mean, in his freshman year, we saw him run down. I think it was the exhibition, but we saw him run down a guy and swat a shot off the backboard. Like, where did that go, right? And if he's going to compliment Owen, I think he should come off the bench and be a 4-5. Come off the bench, and he needs to kind of be that enforcer type. He doesn't need to put up a ton of a ton of points every night, but he's got to be better on the glass. You can't be out rebounded by almost 20 rebounds with him and Freeman on the floor. And I know he only played 10 minutes, right? But you can't foul that much either, and then also not be physical. Like, that's just IQ stuff at that point.
I think I wanted to mention that I don't know if you guys knew, because again, I was around the 90s, and Coach Tom Davis, Gary's head coach, you guys would have 14 or 15 margin of rebounds, and you had little teams. And what were some of the things, just Jess has said on the broadcast, some of the things you guys did during practice, like keep track of that, rebounding. What were some of the things that you guys did? Because Ryan Bowen was an awesome rebounder, stayed in the league because of rebounding. Russ Millar was a good rebounder. Jess Settles, Chris Street led the league in rebounding his sophomore year and before he passed away. AC Earl was a great rebounder. You guys didn't have like a lot of 7-footers in the 90s. Why were you guys so good? And they were always up there in the nation too in rebounding margin. Why were you guys so good?
Yeah, I think it was just an emphasis. It was one of the more important stats that we kept, that we felt was important. And usually if you're one of the leading rebounders, you're going to get time, because that's that was important. And spent a lot of time watching tape on technique in terms of going to the glass and checking people out, and just it was an emphasis. I think anytime you emphasize something, it tends to get better. So I think that's probably the biggest reason.
Yeah, Tom Davis teams, Corey, were very good rebounding teams. I don't know if you knew that or not, but they were.
You probably didn't.
Who are you talking to? You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Are you asking Gary if he knew that Tom Davis?
No, I was asking you.
I was asking you.
Oh, I was asking you, Corey, if you knew Tom Davis teams were really good rebounding teams, because they were constantly in the top 10 in the country in rebounding.
2 years we led the country in rebounding.
Yeah.
Real quick,
I even got a plaque back here, right? Here you go.
You got a rebounding plaque back there, Gary?
Well, they led the nation.
Well, maybe Jess needs to.
How do I get that on there?
Other side. Pull it back a little bit. Here,
this way? No.
Can we? I don't know how to do that, actually.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right.
Me?
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Glass of the glass.
Maybe you need to take a picture of that and send it Send it to Matt. Send it to Matt. And he can share it with Fran and the guys. Don't send it directly to Fran.
We like rebounders, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we like rebounders still.
Hey, Doug, let's give Fran an attaboy on
That's
something.
a stat that's completely unselfish. I mean,
Yep.
you can go get 25 rebounds and you're not hurting your team. You take 25 shots, you might be, depending on how many you make.
But let's give Fran an attaboy on something. They did go out and get Traore.
Yep.
That dude, he's a baller. Like
That dunk was
he's got
awesome.
an unbelievably high ceiling, and that's why I think we were all disappointed as we were watching this. Like, man, he's not playing, and again, you don't know everything that's going on. Maybe there was some soft tissue stuff, but I think he and Thelwell, how important are they, Gary? Just with their ability to defend, and I mean, certainly Thelwell is one of the more experienced guys in Division I. He won an unbelievable number of games at Morehead State. How important is it that Fran was able to get those guys? Because if they didn't have those guys, who's giving you rebounding? Who's giving you that type of defense?
Well, that's college basketball now, is being able to go out and find people like that. You know, you see it all across the country where, you know, guys come in from different schools and give teams boosts. It's you know, the days of 5-year seniors and 4-year seniors are pretty much by the boards.
Lemansky, appreciate the super chat. Welcome back, Coach Gary. Appreciate your viewpoints. So thank you, Lemansky. Anything else, Doug?
Well, we're going to go get some food. Just that was really disappointing.
This late at night, it's 10 o'clock.
Well, we'll see.
Hey,
but
Doug, did you like my you're not on Twitter, are you? I posted a picture of well, actually, it was a pretty good Hawkeye huddle. I
went there right beforehand. So
okay, we got the tail end of the Hawkeye huddle, but
someone went and got tacos.
The Power and Light District, unbelievable the difference between right now and when you see, not that this should attract tons of fans, but like when you see snapshots from the Big 12 tournament and how Iowa State fans are packed in there. It's cool. It's probably colder now than it is in March, but anyways, it's a great basketball downtown.
Yeah, it is. We had some NCAA tournament games there. It is.
I think
we played in that arena. I'm not sure, but I'm guessing we did.
Yeah, I wanted to come down here because of being from Ames and how much they boast about everything. You know, I as I've said before, this is what I'm gonna leave on. One of the most important games, I think they're gonna kill upstate or whatever, or downstate or South Carolina, whatever they are. But the Northwestern game to start off the Big Ten is so important. And Northwestern's had their struggles this year. You can't start off 0-2 in the Big Ten, and because they've had that happen so many times. So I really hope there's a good crowd for that Northwestern game a week from next Tuesday. So thank you, guys.
Safe travel. Thank you, Doug.
See you, Doug.
Elliot's got something. He just got done talking to, Brock Harding, Peyton Sanford, maybe an injury update on Peyton.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen on my Twitter, first of all, at Elliot Clough on Twitter, 1L1T, Clough like rough and tough. It's Peyton came out of the locker room and spoke to Tyler Tashman and I from the Des Moines Register, and he had a bag of ice wrapped around his right wrist. You may have noticed in the game against Ryder, he came out with a wrap around it and airballed a three and then ran off and threw the wrap off and kept playing. Apparently he hurt his wrist against Washington State. Josh Dix did as well, but Peyton has continued to play. He told us post-game with that wrap around his wrist that he's not able to do much in basketball or in life right now. I don't know exactly what that means, but he hasn't been practicing either. But tonight, 1 of 13 from 3, so I guess that kind of adds up. He did say it's a ligament issue. He's not trying to make an excuse, but he was just being honest with us about what's going on. So you have to think that's part of the issue with the shooting, right? How much do you think he, especially Gary as a coach, would you think he should take some time off, get healthy? Or I mean, who knows if this is something where
that's a tough call, because it's
right.
Anything like that can throw you off. There's no doubt about that. But they need him in there, so I think that's one they'll monitor very closely.
Appreciate it, Elliot.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Elliot Clough on Twitter. Check it out. And Hawkeye Beacon. You're doing great stuff over there. We've got thank you. We got Kyle and James. Let's go to Kyle. Appreciate you being here, Kyle. Welcome back.
Thanks for being here, Gary. We appreciate you taking the time. Hey, it was family movie night, so I watched the game on like 1.5 speed to catch up. It seemed like they were really stretching the zone. Like it wasn't just like, hey, let's just pack the middle to stop Freeman, but it seemed like they were denying passing lanes, stretching out, like just making it hard for the guys to get even into the offense. Is that fair?
I think at times they did, yeah. They kind of matched up depending on what Iowa was running and where they were lining up. But the best thing they did is they just kept the ball out of the paint. They didn't get very many post touches, and when they did, it was fairly effective. So, and Iowa just didn't shoot well from three. And like we said, it wasn't a lot of bad shots. There were a few that were a little questionable, but they just didn't make the defense work very much, in my opinion. The ball was pretty stationary. They did a lot of dribbling, east and west, not north and south, and then they became a little easier to guard, and didn't get a ton of post touches, and didn't get to the free throw line very much. And it's tough to offense rebound, miss threes. It's not an easy thing to do. So I think their zone offense needs a little work. It's early in the year. They probably had a lot of work against teams that have done it. I don't know so far how many teams have played against them, but it looked a little out of sync.
Yeah, it feels like maybe I'd be interested if other teams do it. They're trapping in the corner as well. Just felt like they struggle with the pressure just a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. At times they did. Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Corey, maybe that the open background, different shooting background. Did I hear that correctly?
I mean, I asked that question because that was the first thing I thought of when I walked into this arena. And I verbalized it to everybody else we were sitting around. I'm like, these are gyms, it seems like, anecdotally in my mind, that Iowa traditionally doesn't shoot very well in. And I'm thinking even NCAA tournament, Big Ten tournament venues. And I'm not, again, could just be a coincidence, but they came out here and shot 5 of 26 from 3.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that I feel like in the last couple of years there's been, they're playing with a different ball, and some people really want to push back against that narrative. But there's just some growing scientific research that would indicate when you train a certain way and it's the same way all the time. So whether that's, I need to shoot in a perfect form every time, that doesn't translate very well to the game, because you're not going to shoot the same way every time. You might have space. You might have a guy on a certain side. Even if it looks similar, it's going to be different. Same thing with a ball. If you train with the same ball, if you train in the same venue. And so, there's a lot of coaches in the basketball world who are shifting their perspective on what they thought. Like, you have to train perfect to play perfect. You actually have to train a little bit messy and make it variable so that athletes can be exposed to any number of problems that they're going to encounter in a game. Because quite simply, as a coach, you can't prepare a guy for every single thing that they're going to see. You have to prepare them to be a good problem solver in the situation. So I wouldn't be surprised, and the research would indicate that's certainly a piece of it. If you're only ever shooting at one place and then you go translate and it looks different, like a little bit like the Iowa quarterbacks, right? At times they can only do one thing, and so because of that, they're not very adaptable to be able to do multiple things.
Somebody did ask about the ball tonight. So I was up at the Pentagon a couple of days ago, and somebody made a point of verbalizing to me what type of ball they were playing with, but I'm not thinking about that as I'm watching this game. I have no idea. I don't think there's not many venues that seem to play with the Nike ball that Iowa plays with. So if there's anything with the ball, first of all, I think it's a tired narrative. Second of all, if it's a narrative, then if there's substance to it, then change the ball you play with, because it seems like you could leave Iowa, they play with other basketballs, Gary.
Yeah.
Well, most programs will know what ball is being played in every. When they announced that tournament to the teams, they said where it's going to be, what time it was going to be, what officials were going to ref it, and they even got down to what ball they're going to play with. I almost can guarantee it. And every single Big Ten team's basketball, and you research the other teams that you play if you're going to play on the road, and you get those balls, and that's the balls you practice with prior to playing a game. If not, then you're missing something out there. I mean, I think almost every team. I'd be shocked if not every team doesn't do that, because there's a different ball for the Big Ten tournament. There's a different ball for the NCAA tournament. things like that. So most teams know what balls they're playing with literally at every game they go to, or they should put it that way. I think if you look at the 3-point shooting, other than Sanford, who obviously took a lot, and Dix, the percentages probably were pretty good from the other guys.
If by the other guys you mean
Harding,
Brock Harding,
he's the only one that shot a 3, other than
Drew Thelwell he was 1 of 1, but so Peyton was 1 of 13, Dix was 0 for 4, Price was 0 for 2.
Okay. And Harding made 3 or 4, and the other kid made 1.
It would be nice to get. I mean, I thought Drew Thelwell was maybe the best player on the court in Moline here a few days ago. He played 23 minutes, didn't have his best game, but again, this was the Brock Harding night, and you just can't. I just keep going back. You can't survive 1 of 13 from the guy you view as your best player and as an NBA prospect. And I'm not trying to put this solely on Peyton Sandberg. They got to rebound the ball better, and they got to turn the ball over less. But 1 of 13 from 3 from your 3-point shooting star player, that's insane.
Well, he shoots 4 for 13, and it's a game.
Yeah, and that's horrible. I mean, not horrible. But that's not good. Anyways, anything else, Kyle?
That'll do. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. All right, folks. If you're interested in donating, you can do so by means of Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. Those are all in the description. It'd be greatly appreciated. And of course, if you're interested in sponsorship here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, you can send in an email, info@fromthehawkeyeofthestorm.com. It's scrolling across the bottom of your screen. And Lemansky says, anyone else remember Clay Hargrove leading the Big Ten in rebounding at less than 6'5"? What year would this have been, Gary?
That's back there. That's probably the late 70s, early 80s.
Very interesting. And Dom adds, he says, Gary, we miss you guys. It hasn't been the same since you left. That makes you feel good, doesn't it, Gary?
Nice. That's nice of my cousin to say that. I appreciate that.
All right, Dom, close. No. Let's go to our next. We got James, probably a final caller of the night. I'd like to get back to the hotel room and catch the tail end of the Mavs game.
You need to get something to eat.
Oh, man. Listen, let me just say this real quick. They do a great job here. The T-Mobile Center does accommodating the media. They had chicken parmesan tonight, and let's see, fettuccine, and let's see. Yeah, they had a nice.
Getting me hungry.
They had a nice spread. Let's go to James, and we'll wrap this thing up. James, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right,
James.
Obviously could have been doing better, but I didn't watch the game because I had some stuff going on for my own basketball thing. But I caught up portions of it, and just looking at the score, I can kind of tell off of like the rebounding numbers. You just look at the rebound numbers and tell obviously they didn't rebound, right? Like there's some stuff you can just look at from numbers and box scores and just tell like, okay, you weren't good in that situation. Like rebounding, you can tell because what was it, 16? Was it plus 16 for Utah State, or was it? Did I see that right?
Let's see. Corey will know that.
Honestly, I couldn't even hear what you said. What'd you say, James?
Rebounding, was it plus 16? It was 47 to 31, right?
Yeah, it was. You were exactly right. Iowa was minus 16, 47.
Yeah, well, plus 16 for them is what I meant, but yeah.
Yep.
But no, yeah, you can't.
They didn't just lose. They didn't just lose on rebounding. They lost on 3-point shooting. They lost on free throw shooting. They lost on field goal percentage. So they basically lost every stat that's meaningful.
But they're also a team that holds their hat on 3-point shooting and making shots to stay in games, right? So when you can't do that, this is the point I think we've been making for a while. Of like, if you can't do that, it's tough for this France teams to win usually in the past, right? And obviously, every year is a different year, right? And I give him the benefit of the doubt of every year is a different year, if that makes sense. But this is something we've held our head on in the past. Of Fran is like, if they're not making shots, they have a tough time competing. Like this is how it is, and you can kind of see that today again. And it kind of does worry you a little bit in the fact of you've seen it in the past. This isn't just like a one-off thing of like this team a one-off thing for this team. But I mean,
James, the rebounding problems are a problem. Gary, knows
I'm saying like the shooting. And I'm not saying they're not a problem. I'm saying there are problems. It's scaring me in the fact of like they always worry you when you're not rebounding, but that if you're not making shots for Fran, usually you don't win. But the rebounding is what scares me the most. I feel like is what I was kind of getting at.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about some of those.
Yeah.
James, you remember those nights here in the last few years where Iowa was like minus 25 against Illinois and minus 28 at Iowa State. I mean, you're just guaranteed to lose, and they're getting stomped in those games. And that is a scary. That's why I'm calling upon Laji Dembele to rebound better. I mean, he just got to rebound better. I mean, Owen Freeman, I don't know that you can ask a whole lot more from the glass from Owen. He had 11 tonight. I mean, he needs some help in there. And somebody made the comment, the media guy sitting next to me who doesn't cover Iowa, he's a big college basketball reporter. He made the comment that, Peyton doesn't look like a guy who's real concerned with crashing the glass. And James, you know that he kind of he kind of stuffs the stat sheet maybe against your smaller mid-majors, the Riders and the Southerns of the world. But Peyton's got to have some. I mean, he finished tonight with 3 rebounds. He's got to rebound better at 6'8", especially if we're talking about a potential draft prospect who struggles on the defensive end. How is he going to be a draft prospect if he's – now, the three-point shooting is one thing. He's 1 of 13. I'm not going to judge him for that. But you better be able to rebound or defend. And you're not given either one of those things. I don't know how he possibly ends up making an NBA team next year. But
no, definitely. And this gives you more, I think it gives you more on the rebounding fact of it's Utah State. Thinking about when you run into, like, Big Ten teams, right, who are going to be probably more physical, probably more.
Well, real quick, let me just give Utah State credit. Gary,
no,
Fran was real complimentary of Utah State. That's a major program. I mean, I know they play in the Mountain West, but would you agree with that?
Well, the Mountain West is a good league.
Yeah, it is.
They don't get the publicity, obviously, the Big Ten gets, but no, that's the teams that have been in the NCAA tournament and they win games. That's not a so-called buy game where you just go out and whip them.
I wasn't saying that as much. But I'm saying I expect them to not get out rebounded like that against a team like that.
No, I agree, but I do think
they shouldn't get out rebounded by anybody.
Exactly.
Well, true, but
I think Utah State's probably as physical as probably any Big Ten team they're going to play.
They could be an NCAA tournament team again. Wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. Do you know when Utah State's last Big Ten win was?
No idea. I just know they had
2007 against Iowa. 2007, and they beat Iowa that year.
Okay.
That was the last time they beat a Big Ten school, so that's kind of a weird stat line to think about. Like, I know it was a while ago, but the last Big Ten win was against Iowa, now they get another one against Iowa. It's kind of a weird thing to think about. But
Iowa did beat them up in the Pentagon a couple years ago.
Yeah. But no, it's a tough loss. Obviously, they need to win probably the rest of these. Other than maybe Iowa State, obviously need to win the rest of these non-conference games for sure. And
it's early. You see games like this. I mean, I would have thought Nebraska would beat Creighton at Creighton.
Yeah, true. You never know.
You could have won a ton of money on that bet.
Yeah. You never know nowadays, but they get USC upstate, so at least they get a chance to, hopefully right the ship before they get to Northwestern and you get in the Big Ten play. You never know what can happen. It's Big Ten play. You never know with that. So
yeah, Big Ten's wide open.
Appreciate you being here, sir.
I'll let you go, and I know you got to trip back to your hotel. Hopefully you're safe, and hopefully you're driving back tomorrow. You're safe as well, and just enjoy your night. And hopefully Iowa can pull it off tomorrow. I might not be able to watch the game because unfortunately I got unfortunate family event going on tomorrow. So, but
okay. Well, we'll get you Sunday. Hopefully,
after
the game.
Yep, for sure. Enjoy your night.
Okay, thanks, James.
Take care, James.
Ben, appreciate the super chat. 18 of the last 20 NCAA tournament champions have been in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, according to Ken Palm. No point other than Ken Palm is the GOAT. So appreciate the super chat, Ben. And what was I going to mention? Oh, Craig is making some corrections. He says, first of all, it's Clay Hargrave, not Hargrove. And
that's
second,
true.
Hargrave wasn't on the team in 1980 against Georgetown. Whoever it was that said that earlier, he's making some corrections. So apparently somebody said that in the chat. Okay, so let's run through a kind of a quick synopsis of the box score tonight for anybody that didn't catch the final box score, didn't catch the game. The Hawkeyes falling here at the saying Sprint Center. It used to be the Sprint Center, T-Mobile Center. Final score 77-69. Iowa getting 18 and 11 out of Owen Freeman. 14 points out of Peyton Sandfort, but he was 1 of 13 from 3. Brock Harding had a career night, 19 points, 3 of 6 from the field, from 3, 8 of 15 from the field overall. Josh Dix He continues to struggle as well. Obviously coming off an injury. He was 0 for 4 from 3. And, hard to look past there. I mean, Logic gives you a goose egg. Cooper Koch gives you a goose egg. You get 1 point out of Price. You get 2 out of Bronze, 5 out of Felwell, 4 out of Traore. Iowa is minus 16 on the glass. They lose on points in the paint. They lose on second chance points. They lose big on fast break points and on bench points. Got outshot from 3, outshot from the free throw line, outshot from the field as a whole. And somehow Iowa was in this game until the last 5-6 minutes of the game. So, like Gary said, these games are going to happen early. The bottom line is this was an opportunity lost. You'd like to be able – you don't have a ton of opportunities in the non-conference. You'd like to be able to get some neutral court wins. Now it's even that much more important to go to Sioux Falls next month and win against Utah. I think that's a must-win. And obviously you get Iowa State at home, but that's a really good state team. And then basically it's conference play besides a couple of bye games.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
Anything else, Gary, that I'm missing before we wrap this thing up?
I think you got it completely covered, Corey, as
All
always.
Right. As always, I was going to say, don't you forget it. Always got it completely covered here. And Coach, it's been fun to be back with you. I apologize for some of the background noise, but we'll get back to our home base and
adds a little character to the show.
Yeah, I'm not going to stick around. I couldn't. Let's see if there's an update. It looked like Wichita State was leading St. Louis. I'll tell you, there's nobody out there watching this game.
I've watched a few other events, and it's amazing how there are very few people at some of these tournaments. There are a couple in South Carolina. There's nobody in the gym. It's pretty good basketball.
Yeah,
but it's early yet, and people haven't announced football and haven't quite got into it yet. There'll be a packed house in Maui. I'm looking forward to watching that. Always, there'll be a few others like that, but
Iowa State's out there and always good basketball.
That's a loaded field.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oof.
Folks, we've got football tomorrow and, of course, post-game coverage with myself, and then a part 2 of the post-game show with Coach Patterson Sunday night at 7 p.m. Also on Sunday, we've got women's basketball post-game coverage because the Hawkeye ladies play Wazoo in Carver Hawkeye Arena, and then the men will be back in action Tuesday at 7. So it does not slow down, and this is just one game, but Iowa needs to be better in a number of facets. I think we can all agree on that. And they fall tonight 77-69. For Coach Gary Close, I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Gary, been a pleasure. We'll talk to you next time.
Enjoyed it. You bet.